The streets of Claiborne always told a quiet story, though few people ever listened. On the surface, it was an ordinary little town where neighbors knew each other's names, children played in the dusty lanes, and small shops stayed open just long enough to make a day's survival possible. But beneath that surface was a different reality, a life marked by hard choices, sacrifices, and endless endurance. In one of the town's oldest, most crumbling houses lived a boy named Jamal, only 12 years old yet already carrying the weight of a man's struggles on his shoulders. Jamal's family had never known wealth, but after his father's sudden passing from an illness that the family couldn't afford to treat, survival became even harder. His mother, a woman with calloused hands and tired eyes, worked from dawn until deep into the night cleaning houses in wealthy neighborhoods where laughter and plenty spilled from kitchens she could never call her own. Despite all her effort, she often returned home with barely enough money to pay rent and buy some rice, beans, or day-old bread from the corner shop. Life was hard, and Jamal knew it. Yet, despite his thin frame and worn-out clothes, there was something strong in him, an inner flame of kindness that hunger and hardship could never snuff out. That evening, after a long day of school where his stomach growled so loudly he tried to hide his embarrassment behind the sound of pencils scratching on paper, Jamal returned home to find his mother setting a small plate on the table. It wasn't much, just a scoop of rice with beans on the side, a meal so modest it would not have filled a child with plenty, let alone a boy who hadn't eaten properly all day. His mother stroked his cheek with her weary hand and whispered, "Eat slowly, baby. We'll have more tomorrow." He could hear the hope in her voice, though he knew she hadn't eaten herself and would likely go to bed hungry. He wanted to insist she eat instead, but she was gone before he could argue, leaving for yet another late shift to clean offices across town. Jamal sat staring at the plate, torn between gratitude and hunger. He picked it up carefully and stepped outside to sit on the porch, where the cool evening breeze offered him a small comfort. As he lifted his spoon, his eyes caught sight of an elderly couple slowly making their way down the road. The man leaned heavily on a cane, his steps shaky and deliberate, while the woman clung to his arm for support. Their clothes were faded and patched in places, shoes worn thin from years of use. Something about their faces, lined with age yet softened with dignity, caught Jamal's heart. They stopped near his porch, sitting down on the curb as though even the effort of walking had drained them. It was then Jamal noticed it, the way the woman pressed her hand against her stomach, the way the man whispered as though trying to distract her from the gnawing pain of hunger. Their voices were low, but Jamal could hear enough. They hadn't eaten since the day before. The sound of their stomachs rumbling echoed something deep in Jamal's own body, but it stirred something else too, a compassion that outweighed his empty belly. His hands tightened around the plate as he debated silently, torn between survival and generosity. He knew this was his only meal, the only food until tomorrow when maybe, if his mother was paid, there might be more. But when he looked at the old couple again, when he saw the woman's frailty and the man's silent endurance, the choice became clear. He rose from the steps and walked toward them. "Excuse me," he said softly, his voice carrying both shyness and courage. Would you like to share my food?" The couple looked at him, startled. The old man's eyes widened, and he quickly shook his head. No, child. That's yours. You need it more than we do." His voice trembled with both pride and pain. But Jamal pushed the plate gently toward them, his smile small yet steady. "Please. I'll be okay. You look like you need this more than me." The woman's eyes filled with tears as her hands reached out, shaking as if even the simple act of taking the plate was too heavy with emotion. She whispered blessings as she began to eat slowly, handing the spoon back and forth with her husband so they could share. Jamal sat back on the steps, watching quietly. His stomach groaned with longing as each bite disappeared into their mouths, but in his heart he felt lighter than he had in weeks. He didn't regret his choice, not for a second. That night, he went to bed with nothing in his stomach but everything in his soul. The next morning, Jamal was woken by a sharp knock at the door. At first, he thought it was a mistake, no one ever knocked on their door. But when he opened it, his eyes widened. Standing there was a tall man dressed in a sharp black suit, polished shoes shining against the dusty ground. Behind him was a sleek silver Mercedes, the kind of car Jamal had only ever seen in magazines. The man smiled warmly. "Good morning. Are you Jamal?" he asked in a voice that carried both authority and gentleness. Jamal nodded nervously. "Yes, sir." The man extended his hand. My name is Mr. Robinson. I heard something about you yesterday that I couldn't ignore. Jamal tilted his head in confusion. About me? Yes, Mr. Robinson replied. An elderly couple told me about a boy who gave away his only meal, even though he had nothing left for himself. That boy was you, wasn't it? Jamal looked down, embarrassed. It was just dinner. It wasn't a big deal. Mr. Robinson smiled, but his eyes glistened as though he saw something extraordinary in the boy. Not a big deal. Son, it was everything. In a world where people often turn away, you chose to give. That kind of heart is rare. And kindness like that deserves to be seen. He reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope, pressing it into Jamal's hands. Inside was a check, one so large Jamal couldn't even count the zeros without stuttering. His hands trembled as he held it, unable to process what it meant. I don't understand, he whispered. Mr. Robinson rested a hand on his shoulder. Years ago, I was in the same position as you. Hungry, hopeless, ready to give up. But a stranger showed me kindness and gave me a chance. That chance changed my life, and I became the man you see today. I promised myself that one day, when I saw that same light in another soul, I would return the blessing. Yesterday, that light came from you. And today, I'm here to keep my promise. At that moment, Jamal's mother rushed to the door, alarmed by the voices. When she saw the suited man and the check in Jamal's hands, she froze in disbelief. Mr. Robinson explained everything, his voice steady, his words almost too generous to be real. This isn't charity. This is hope. Your son gave everything he had, and now I want to make sure he never has to choose between hunger and kindness again. From that day forward, Jamal's life began to change. The check paid off their debts, repaired the broken house, and gave Jamal the chance to attend a good school. But what stayed with him most was not the money, it was the truth that kindness multiplies. Years later, when Jamal grew into a man of his own success, he carried that same lesson into the world. He built a foundation to feed hungry families, dedicating it to the strangers who became family on a lonely street. And every time he told his story, he reminded others that what you give with love always comes back in ways you cannot imagine. And that, my friends, is the story of Jamal, the boy who gave his last meal and received a future he never dreamed possible. What about you? Do you believe kindness always comes back? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories. If this touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe, and join our family here on Be Kind Always. Because every small act of kindness matters, and together we can spread it across the world.